Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again, outside of the gym, and actually, I'm not lifting today. I'm taking the rest of the week off from training. Yes, I know, sad but true. I actually went into the gym yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, I went in yesterday. My memory's starting to go on me. Went in yesterday with the expectations of doing some squats. However, I got in there, I was warming up. My hip didn't really feel right. Started squatting and it just really didn't feel right. And I know myself pretty well, especially when it comes to my hip and groin region, triangle of power, if you will. And I just didn't feel good. And I decided that I'm gonna take an off week, only because I want to come back strong and I don't want this to be a persistent problem as I'm planning on upping the weights, and it's just gonna get worse if I don't address it right now. So I wanna just give it a couple of days before I jump back into regular training, back on a regular program. So no more of this YOLO, just going in squat, bench, or deadlift. Gonna go back onto my programming, but I wanna make sure that I'm ready thoroughly in order to do so. So that's kind of the deal. So because of that, I'm still gonna go into the gym and I'm just gonna work on some general mobility stuff because I might as well address it, because obviously there's a problem if my hip is hurting this bad and I wasn't really working too heavy at the time. So I wanna address those things now. Plus it gives me a reason to go into the gym, which is just something that I enjoy doing. But as part of that, I thought I'd kind of address some stuff. So oftentimes in these videos I get asked questions about my opinion on things, which is kind of funny that people actually want my opinions. So I'm going to give it to you. So this is not unsolicited. This is definitely solicited. A lot of people ask me about training programs, which one is better specifically to start training. So getting into beginner trainer programs, what would you do? Because there's a lot of debate about what's the best program out there, and we're all about making them gains. We want to be as efficient as possible. So a lot of people like starting strength, a lot of people like strong lifts, a lot of people like Jason Blaha's 5x5. There's a lot of great programs out there, but it's really hard to pinpoint which one is the best. So I started to think about this, and instead what I figured I'd do is take you back in time. So just imagine that there's a flux capacitor here in the whip, and we're going back to a little time I like to call the 90s. I'm talking when pagers ruled them all. I'm talking back when if you had a nice little Pog, you were the man. I'm talking before the times of Pikachu. I didn't even know who that was back then. I'm talking way back then, when I started training. So for those of you, to give you some context, that haven't followed me for any length of time or just don't care, when I start rambling you just change the channel, which probably most of you have just done right now. I started training in the mid-90s when I was a freshman in high school. I think this was like 1996, so right around the middle of 1990, and I started training as part of playing basketball in high school. The coach required us to go in when we made the team and max on our bench, and I think on curls also. He was really big on bench and curls, so he was a man after my own heart, which is really tough to say. But that's what he had us do. So whenever I would go and train past that point, I would be really interested in doing those things, not only because that's what the basketball coach would always ask, hey, what's your bench? Hey, what's your curl? Sounds really funny thinking about it now compared to where I am. He'd ask those things, so obviously those were important to me, but also because those were like the beach muscles, the show muscles, you know, just bench and biceps. You know, that's all most people cared about back then, and that's still what a lot of people still just care about today. Maybe throw some triceps in there as well. So that's really where I started to get my training foundation. So 9th grade and 10th grade, that's really all I did, is I would bench and I would curl, and that was pretty much it. Now starting my junior year in 11th grade, when you no longer had to take physical education as a class and you could just take whatever electives you wanted to, my school had a weight training elective. So I took weight training my junior and senior years, which was nice because basically I had a class where I would just go and lift. And this class was run by our football coach, and my high school had a very big, and still does have a very big, football program in the state of Virginia. Most people that play football on that team get Division I scholarships to some pretty big colleges. So we used to have like the head coach of Notre Dame walking through our high school in order to recruit people. So that was pretty cool. But that being said, they had a very good strength program, a very good gym. So I lucked out in that scenario. However, for that class, we would have to max in certain lifts. So it wasn't just bench and curls anymore. Unfortunately, he would have us do maxes in squats, in deadlifts, in decline bench, and I think that was it. Maybe cleans as well. I don't remember, again, we're dating myself here. But as part of the class, you would go in and you'd have a workout card and you would write down exactly what you did, so like tracking your progress, and at the end of the day you would just hand it in and he would eyeball them just to make sure that you were actually lifting. He didn't put anyone on any specific program, nor did he really mind. So you could literally go in and bench every single day if you wanted to, and as long as you actually made progress, you would get an A in the class or complete the class, assuming you showed up for it. Although I can say every other Friday he took us bowling, which was awesome, by the way, especially when you're in high school. So again, I didn't really have any programming back then either. However, because we were required to max out in those things, I think I mentioned squat. If not, he may have had us max out in squat as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I would go and I would do those, I think maybe 2 or 3 times a quarter, and that was it. I wouldn't routinely do them as part of my programming. So I got a really off balance. And just to kind of let you know how off balance I was, like literally, I don't think I trained back until I really started to get into college. Now at my high school gym, we had a lat pull down that was plate loaded, so you could put as many plates as you wanted on, which, think of it now, is awesome, because now a lot of lat pull down machines are set with certain weights that you can use. This one you could just keep throwing 45s on if you wanted to. However, I never really did that. So when I think back to the initial question of what could you change or what program would you do, I would just really stress the importance of balance. And I say that because although I did make great progress, and if you're just starting training now, as long as you're consistent and you're working out on a consistent basis and trying to overload what you're doing and make progress, you're going to see gains, both in strength, both in size. That's just part of the game. If you're consistent, you will see gains regardless of what program you're on, as long as you're pushing yourself or trying to improve sets, reps, weights, whatever, you're gonna make progress. So when it comes down to the question about which routine is best, I don't really think it matters for the most part. What matters more, in my opinion, is consistency. And for me specifically, if I could change one thing, it would be balance. Meaning that, again, I saw great bench press gains, I saw great curl gains, and I did make gains in other lifts as well, but I think that prohibited me going forward from being more all around and average. So you guys know, obviously from watching my videos these days, I bitch and complain a lot about mobility. I think a lot of that is being taller. I think a lot of that is my lower back injury, but I also think a lot of that is because back then I didn't squat. I didn't know how. I didn't have my form down right. I didn't work on things like mobility. I didn't train legs. I didn't do calves. I still don't do calves. I didn't train back. So when I graduated high school, I had a really big bench, but I also had what I would consider my shoulders to be pulled forward more, because again, I never did any back training to really fix those kind of issues. So if you're gonna train, do it consistently, but just make sure you have balance in your routine. So regardless of which of those programs I already mentioned that you go with, just know that they're good because again, they do provide balance. And one of the best things about training and learning is finding out what works for you and what you really like. Just because a program is really highly reviewed or a lot of people see gains on it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to enjoy doing it. And if you don't enjoy doing it, that's going to start to play with your consistency, because why would you want to go to the gym to do a routine that you don't like? So find something you're really happy with. Also, don't be afraid to experiment some, just because if you look at some of the strongest people out there, they all have their own stories about how they got there. Look at people like George Lehman, who does like 20 rep sets for everything, 20 rep deadlifts, all this crap, but he's still making gains. So don't think that you can't necessarily play with it some. Those routines are good because they give you a basic structure, a basic outline. They can point you in the right direction, and they've been successful for many people. But again, don't be afraid to stray necessarily. Just keep in mind balance and consistency are always key. Okay, so I hope that made sense. I just rambled for 8.5 minutes. Hopefully you guys watch this. If not, I apologize. If so, I apologize. But I'm gonna go to the gym and work on my hip and get that thing loose as a goose, and maybe the Beyonce can help later. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.